Like not an actual episode. It's like, go fuck off for a little bit.
A Fallout?
Fuck off episode.
Oh, I think you said Fallout. I was like,
What are we fucking off on?
We're playing
I don't know. We're just gonna play like songs on the TV and then drink to them. That sounds fun.
I actually enjoy that.
Sounds like a game to me. It's actually a game I play quite often. It's called I'm Depressed and at Home by myself.
Hello.
It's me.
The Necronomicon awaits.
A ritual must be performed.
Seems fairly obvious.
Batu, Murata.
I told you I would find you.
Nani?
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumping night.
It's showtime.
What's your name? What? What is your name?
We are men of misfortune.
Welcome, misfortunate listeners. It is I, Tyler Campbell. Today we are doing an interview with Brian Irish. In the studio we've got
Your other humble host, Riley Wallen, and I just shaved all my hair off today, so I'm feeling pretty good. To my right, I have...
You've got Dylan from Morning Cup of Chaos. I'm sitting here talking, getting ready to talk some paranormal stuff, man.
Yes, sir. Brian has been a paranormal investigator longer than I've been alive, pretty much. How long you been doing this?
God, since I was probably almost 50 years now.
50 years.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Shit.
God.
So I'd say paranormal expert at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. After 50 years, I would think so. Dude, how old are you?
I'm going to be 56, actually, in a couple of weeks.
Jesus.
Well, congratulations.
From the,
That's
from the
50 years,
beginning,
man.
though.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
awesome. What was your first experience? What got all of this started?
Oh, I knew this was coming. So when I was 6 years old, I attended my grandfather's funeral. And as he lay there in the casket, I had all these questions like, my dear grandpa, where's he going to go next? And from that point on, it sparked my mind and I started asking questions. And one thing led to another, and I was getting into Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. At that point, even as a young kid playing around on the CB, my handle was Loch Ness Monster. But and it was funny, but my uncle Donnie, his nickname on the CB, his CB handle was Bigfoot. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
So I was always like, what happens after we die? Is that it? Are we in the ground? Are we dead? Is that it? Whatever. But as I'm maturing and finding out, we're basically spiritual beings having a spiritual experience in a meat suit, right? So,
okay.
Yeah. See, one of the memories that I have growing up is being at Grandma and Grandpa Irish's house, and you coming over, and you bringing a tape of, I want to say it was one of your shows, and I remember a paranormal reader mount. It was on a chair in the middle of this room, and it was like a box, and it had like a dial. Basically, if anything got close, it would go up and down.
Oh yeah, the EMF meters. Yeah, the electromagnetic field meters.
Yeah, and I remember it shooting up so high and then dropping back down and shooting up high and going back down, and then all of a sudden it flew out of the chair. And I think that was the moment that I was like, I need to know what's out there. And I have been so into the paranormal aspect of our research that we've been doing, the hoax that we've gotten into, like the Amityville hoax. And then we have something, surreal in front of us. With TikTok and social media and any kind of platform, do you think having these other platforms out there to either spread a hoax fear or actually show evidence, how do you think that hurts or helps the community?
Well, I think the technology has jumped ahead so far in CGI that any one of us now can sit down and hoax a video, which is kind of sad, but it makes you have to prove that video, so much harder now. But back in the day when I was running cameras and running around on investigations, I used a digital camera that actually used a digital 8 format. So it was a tape that was running and recording digital on this camera. So it's like you could do something in post edit if you wanted to, but yeah, the technology today makes it so much easier to fake these videos. So it creates, I think, a lot more unbelievers or disbelievers because of that technology, because that's the first thing you hear out of anybody's mouth nowadays. TikTok, whatever, CGI, it's fake, who paid them? So yeah.
You were talking about some of your first investigations, like the Brown Mountain Lights. What did going and doing some of these investigations, did it help you open your eye? Did it help you see something that you weren't fully across the line over?
I think any of the evidence that we added into our investigations definitely made me see more and believe more and even dig more. Made me more into the technology, or looking for more technology that would help me bring about some of this evidence. Say, for instance, audio. One of the purchases I did make was an SB7. That's a Samuel Bravo-7 unit. And what that does is it sweeps through radio stations very quickly. You can change the sweep speed or whatever. At the same time, you record audio. So if anything comes through on a frequency, you catch bits and pieces of the audio coming through. So I've had pretty good luck with the SB7, actually. Other things are the cameras, running remote camera systems so that we could catch up, especially audio. Because back in the day, you can imagine that I was using a lot of analog equipment that I could remotely transmit through like an AM FM transmitter to where I was stationed at a listening station or a watching or a viewing station. So yeah, I think a lot of the technology helped me get to well, I wonder if we can do this, or if I use this piece of equipment, what can I bring about? Even low tech stuff. Back in the day, like I said, when I was doing that discovery stuff, that was like 20 years ago. So, and about that time, that's probably when I was most heavily into the paranormal investigations. But we were using stuff as low tech as putting baby powder down onto like black sheets
to see footprints, right?
Near entryways, and also, believe it or not, hanging paper streamers from the ceiling in a grid pattern to see if anything would pass through. So very low tech to high tech,
Oh yeah, no, I've seen some investigations on YouTube that they use the baby powder, or they'll use a flashlight, or they'll they do have some of the higher tech stuff, but they do like to do like the more primitive primal stuff, like the baby powder and the flashlight.
Right.
So on all your adventures, what's the most realistic thing that you've seen that gives you light and points you into the direction of there is an afterlife and it's this, and aliens are real, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, like you said? Like, what was the most damning evidence that you found so far?
Well, that's a big loaded question, because I've studied just about every aspect that I can think of and have gathered evidence that I could find. But one thing I did have to open my mind up to was that in our plane of physical light existence, what we can see in the visible light spectrum is only but a small fraction of what's actually out there. Because we have I think that we have multi-dimensional beings and worlds, if you will, that exist around us. And I think with the infrared technology that I used for the cameras, even back then, we had a mode on there called Super Night Vision, and it actually slowed the video down, increased the aperture open time. And if you guys know what the night vision looks like nowadays, it's kind of like what it was, but it slowed it down to where you're able to see more of that visible light. So if you had only this much visible light, the infrared and the ultraviolet light, it was allowing more of that to come in. And that's one of the big things that caught my eye, was seeing the orbs of light. You guys have seen orbs left and right, right?
Yeah, they're on most paranormal videos.
Yeah, you're like, oh, is it dust? Is it this? Is it that? And, you can imagine back in the day, I was getting emails left and right, tons of them, with nothing but these, light orbs. And what is this? And is this my grandfather? And, is this my dead pet, coming back to see me? And the only correlations I could find with that was the smaller percentage of the pictures or video that I got, if it came with at the same time as something, I was hearing something audibly, like a dog had passed. You hear a barking dog, or you hear somebody speaking. If that happened at the same time I saw an orb, I used that as maybe an indicator that something paranormal was going on in that room. And one of the things that we would use also was we'd use a Wimshurst generator or a Van de Graaff machine to spray ions into the room to create like a highly charged atmosphere in which we could capture these anomalies. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's actually like
I was going to say that's immensely helpful, because basically by doing that you're just like changing the amount of energy that's in the room.
Yeah, you're creating an atmosphere that's rich for them to be able to manifest into a physical form in the light spectrum in the most cases, and beyond that with the cameras that we could actually catch.
So I liked what you said when you said the multi-dimensional, and you brought that up, because I kind of was I was thinking in my head to ask, when you think of, the multi-dimensional thing, so is everything that you think, or not everything per se, but is your belief more in the everything's a spiritual type of thing over like the nuts and bolts like UFOs and stuff like that? Is it more of like an energy multi-dimensional thing, or do you think, there's aliens from like another planet, type?
That's a good question. I think that there are certain things, because basically life is what do you have? Frequency, vibration, and light, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there are some things maybe more, organic, that can survive and or create in these multi-dimensional, divisions or different
almost
layers.
Like pockets.
Right.
Like they have a place to where they can manifest, but outside of that, it's all spiritual.
And it depends on, I think, the frequency range that they're in, and how are they able to raise their vibration, or are we able to raise our vibrations enough to interact with their vibrations? But I don't think that all of these interdimensional beings, being organic again, I don't think that they're always vibrating at the same frequency. I think at certain times, say like during a full moon, you and I know that the full moon definitely affects activity. Mm-hmm. A storm, because of the electrostatic energy that's created, the lightning, the electricity, the ether that is in our air, that surrounds us every day. But yeah, that's what that's why I think that Sasquatch is rare. You know, they're like, well, if you believe in Sasquatch, why haven't we found a skeleton? You know, because I think they're interdimensional beings, and they can come and go at will using portals or portals they create to travel between these dimensions. And I think those veils between our dimensions become thinner when you're able to, you know, during a full moon, or, you know, like I said, during a storm. You know, when people say, oh, the house is haunted, let's go during, when do they say? Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
October 31st.
It's always, yep,
right,
it's always
right.
something like that. Or...
Well, it's during those times, in the months, those months, right? September through April-ish, when you have a drier air, and you also have an atmosphere that's more conducive to electrostatic and electrical energy in the ether.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Right.
I like that because it's you can't have the total, almost think of it as like amperage from one if you don't have the organic stuff interacting as well, like the thunderstorms and stuff like that we obviously know is there and can see all the time, like the moon and stuff like that. So that's a really awesome answer. That was one of my big things because I'm big into, you know, Lovecraftian thought, and I always thought, you know, there was always something to like the amount of knowledge you can handle for certain beings and stuff like that. And, you know, maybe they're there, but it's always like something has to happen to like break that veil.
Right.
So it's kind of like the same thing in a gist type of sense. So I like that.
And you know, something else along those same lines that you're talking about is that when people have these paranormal experiences, especially with like Sasquatch or alien, they always talk about telepathic communication between them and whatever being that's there, you know. So I see that a lot. So I think there's, like I said, I think things vibrate at different frequencies and vibrations at the point where we can see, or they can manifest to what we can see. Can you guys imagine how tripping of balls we would be if we could see everything that was around us at all the time? You know?
No, it's so, that's one of those.
It'd be like a bad
bad
psilocybin trip, wouldn't it?
So the thing with what the energy that you were just talking about, we actually brought that up on our Amityville horror. Like, we honestly both believe that we're just going to be here, and we're just going to basically form mass clumps of energy that can be seen. Are we on the right track with that? I mean,
well, I think what you're reaching for is the psychic imprint. And we talk about that. We had talked about that when we were doing like haunted homes. Some place where something tragic had happened. Maybe the guy, you know, offed himself with a shotgun, or somebody was, you know, abused physically, sexually, mentally in a home. I think a lot of those things leave imprints on, you know, these homes or locations, and it's kind of like a tape recording, to where, going back to analog, I think that those are imprinted, and you know, some of those things I think play over and over, kind of like a recording. So like on the anniversary of, say, George in his house, he shot himself. You know, it happened April 8th, you know, back in 72. So every year on that anniversary, you know, you have this playing through. So I think those may be imprints, meaning something has been imprinted on the environment. And it's kind of like something that's always there. Other times, I think, too, in these haunted locations, is there are interactive entities there that you may ask, can you knock 3 times or 2 times on a wall if you're here, if you can hear me? And you'll get this stuff back, and I've recorded that over the years. But yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're at on that.
So you actually bring up something that I was kind of also curious about. When it comes to hauntings or something like that, I understand the instances like we said in the Amityville Horror. He killed his 6 family members in one night. I'm sure there probably was some type of buildup of energy there, but there's never really been anything recorded. It's one of those things where I was kind of curious about the levels of like haunting. Like is a haunting that responds to you the same as like a poltergeist? Like the knocking, is that something only a poltergeist can do, or is that something that like an everyday spirit can do, or what's the threshold, I guess, before one becomes something like that? You know what I'm saying? Before it's more of like an imprint between an imprint, a poltergeist type deal, a possession, whatever you want to call it.
I think it may have to do with the amount of energy that imprinted on that location. So like, we talk about Amityville, you had 6 people. Yeah, he went and killed, brothers, sisters, mom, dad, all that. Mm-hmm. And you had so much energy, energy vibration again. I think the more tragic, I feel it might be the stronger connection. Part of me also thinks that maybe over time that lessens, it lessens in severity. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, that would kind of make sense because you think about it, there's been hundreds of thousands of years of people dying. Technically,
right.
everywhere we walk should have.
If you go to Gettysburg, you're not walking away with like 15 people like jumping in the back seat.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. Right. I feel like they come with like almost a timestamp, but we just aren't. We'll never be at the point where we are. Always, where we're gonna know that timestamp per se.
And you have to remember that a lot of people that die, they don't know they're dead.
Absolutely.
Their soul is still there. So, and I have experience with this as actually having and helping, spirits pass over, to tell them to actually go towards the light. It's okay. Do you know you're dead? That kind of a thing, and kind of help them over. And on the other end of that spectrum, I have run into discarnate demonic beings that I've had to move off dimension, if I should say. But they were some nasties that I had to deal with. And I remember when I first started doing that, and if you know about Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're famous demonologists. I'm getting chills just talking about it, but they used to drag all kinds of stuff home with them, and things that would attach to them and negative entities, but they had to surround themselves with protective light, the light of God. You're not allowed to come home with me. But I remember my first early days though, once or twice coming home without doing any of that and any of the protection and the light and everything. And, going into the bedroom, hearing all this loud bang. And I'm like, what was that out there? So I went out to the kitchen and all the cabinet doors are open. I'm like, okay.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. What are you doing here? You need to go. Or there were knocks on the wall or on the floor even at one point.
What was the worst experience you've been through? Like, what was the walkout, or like, were you physically hurt? Like, what's the worst?
I've been scratched. Yeah, I've been scratched on my back, my front, usually in 3s, because they like to mock the Trinity if it's anything demonic and evil, which that's usually what's going to try to physically manifest and hurt you. I've had them whisper in my ear, like, get out, and I've heard this. I felt the scratches. And of course, one of the easiest ways they can traverse upon your physical being is through dreams. So you're in the theta state at that point, and it almost gives them an on-ramp onto your soul. So, like I said, it's nothing to be messed with. And my experiences in the past have shown that with protection and knowing that, I'm a firm believer in God, not religion, but God. And I know that God dwells within all of us. Once you have that and you have the love of God, then you know that nothing can get through, nothing can touch you. And I have on one demonic, I'm not going to say exorcism because I'm not a trained exorcist, right. But on one of those occasions, she started, this one gal, we knew there was a haunting. She started spatting out in Latin, something probably she never knew. I started, of course we were recording at the time, and something told me, I asked for St. Michael to come behind me and for protection. And at that moment, because I knew what I was getting ready to do, I was getting ready to go into a pseudo battle. I felt a legion of angels behind me with St. Michael. It felt like I had 10,000 behind me. And it's like, I knew at that point that anytime I needed help, all I had to do was ask. And it was for the right reason. Playing back that episode, and that was also the home location. Tyler, you talked about with the EMF meter that got knocked over.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my throat's dry.
Oh, you're good.
So we watched that on video. We saw the meter, tip forward.
It was the craziest thing that is imprinted into my brain since I was like fucking 8.
Yeah, you could see it. You could hear that meter climbing. It goes ring, and it started going up. The meter got pushed forward and over onto its side. That was the same exact house that I'm talking about. That we had this, the experience with one of the demonic entities. But I banished it to off-world, off-planet. Man, I sent that son of a bitch. I sent him gone. And it felt well, it wasn't me, but it was through me that Archangel Michael and the legions of angels that actually pushed him through. But I created a conduit that makes sense. This isn't about me. It's about what comes through me and the powers that are given through me to actually stand up against, some of this evil in our world.
So I love that you're like perfectly using all these words that are leading into everything I want to ask you. So you said conduit, and the first thing I wanted to bring up about that is you mentioned Ed and Lorraine Warren having stuff attached to them, dragged with them through their many battles, as you said. What's your stance on, I guess, anything like, I think of Aleister Crowley and his old crowd, with the Moonchild rituals and stuff that you hear about throughout the ages, that to bring these things, these secret teachers, malevolent beings, stuff that we don't necessarily know. Yes, exactly.
Some were the Greys. Yeah, some were the Greys.
Okay.
And Aleister Crowley's daughter, do you know who that was?
I unfortunately
I don't.
Barbara Bush.
Barbara Bush.
Aleister Crowley's, and another daughter was Betty White. That's some crazy out there stuff. But anyway, Aleister Crowley, he actually did a sketch up. If you remember, and if you followed Aleister Crowley, you know that he would use blood rituals or satanic ritual sacrifices.
Yeah, he practiced thelema,
Thelema,
but I remember he would make those pies out of menstrual blood and semen and
just the worst,
and excrement and stuff like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was the
feed it to people.
Yeah, it was one of the, so like I said, so that's perfect, like I said, that, and they were in turn in the Moonchild ritual that is the biggest one that's talked about, and then L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, they tried it as well.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where when they brought stuff over, were they trying to be a conduit for something, or were they just opening the door? And what
they were opening the door.
Okay,
yes.
so they weren't necessarily being like, was it AWAS? AWAS wasn't supposed to take him over. AWAS was supposed to guide him in our plane, basically, right?
That's the slippery slope here. There's demonic possession, there's demonic attachment, and there's also demonic, same thing, but demonic obsession, okay? So a person can be influenced by demons that come through, or they can be totally taken over like a walk-in situation to where they are possessed. Yeah. So Aleister Crowley and that whole bunch, man, you talk about the Bushes, the Clintons, all blood sacrificial. I'm at a loss here for a word. All these blood sacrificial rituals they would create to appease these demonic blood sucking, yes, menstrual blood, all of that was kind of like an offering to them.
Yeah.
So what you hear nowadays, I'm not sure how far down this rabbit hole you want to go, but do you guys know what adrenochrome is?
Adrenochrome. It sounds familiar, but off the top of my head, I don't. I'm at a loss for it.
No, yeah, I'm out on that one.
Okay. To appease their demonic reptilian gods, they offer them adrenalized blood from young children, and they get that.
Sorry. Sorry, so is that the same as what do they call it? Argon energy?
Argon energy? I don't think argon energy has to do with blood ritual. I don't think so.
I was gonna say, because that's what I always heard, that the reptilians
were
basically fed off of. It was negative emotions more than
loosh.
Loosh.
Is what they call it.
So I guess what you're going into is the more on planet,
right? What they do to appease to get them to come through to our physical plane of existence. Think of CERN. What do you think CERN's doing?
I don't know who CERN is. Who's
CERN in Switzerland. CERN. Do you know what the CERN is?
No.
I'm at a loss for that one too. I've only.
You don't know about the experimental CERN?
No.
The hydrons. I'm going to get this wrong because I don't have it right in front of me. Was it the Hadron Collider?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
CERN.
yes. Okay. Yes. Now I know what you're talking about.
What do you think they're using that for? They're using that as a big gateway.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I can see.
Yeah. That's the high tech.
Yeah.
That's the high tech way of bringing them through.
I'll explain this a little bit more to you after this, because that's a whole. We'll be here for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's a big one. So anyway, basically, they do through blood, sacrifice of these young children, the adrenalized blood, and if they want to go even further, is they go for the pineal gland, and they torture children to get the adrenaline going, to get this adrenalized blood. It's called adrenochrome. And apparently it takes, from what I understand, it takes about 100 children and sacrifice.
Holy fuck.
100 children to make 1 liter that goes for, I think it's either $1.2 billion for adrenochrome. So it's the most expensive. Yeah, it takes 100 children, adrenalized blood. But it's sickening. So if you go back even further on that, what have we been taught through movies growing up? What creature thirsts for blood?
Vampires.
Right. Yep. What have we been watching on TV? Buffy the Vampire Slayer. All these other different
Twilight.
What?
There's
Yeah.
the new Nicolas Cage movie that's coming out.
Yeah,
Yep.
Renfield.
Yep.
Bram Stoker.
They have to show you. It's their karma. They think, well, they believe that if they show you what they're going to do to you, or at least put it out in the open, then they don't get any bad karmic feedback or blowback from that. They think we're all stupid, man. They think we're all stupid, and they just sit there and laugh at us. They put it in our faces every day in movies, television, mainstream media. Of course, they're controlled. But this is a big old nasty, stinky, dirty, wide and deep swamp that needs to be drained. And this is truly good against evil. So
with you bringing up the reptilians and the Greys, with the, I gotta get into it, man. It's alien time, baby.
Let's do it.
With the intelligence authorization bill being passed in 2021, and with 400 plus reportings of UAPs since the bill's passing, do you feel like there hasn't been enough talked about when it comes to the possibilities of extraterrestrials and what they're doing here? I mean, we've had weather balloons, we've had planes, we've had. I've seen videos of just a ball flying through the air, a metal ball, and then a jet fighter flying not even seconds after it. I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we're so in, like, anytime you see it, it's like we're taking it out. It's done. It's in our area. We're taking it out.
Yeah, I saw that video you're talking about. They're actually, the fighters are chasing this thing down. Most of that stuff that you're seeing in the sky, that's our stuff. That's all top secret. That's Area 51. That's S4.
That's what I was.
That's Groom Lake. It's all of our shit that was reverse engineered back in Eisenhower's day when they did create this contract with
the treaty.
The treaty. That's right. And what did we get for that treaty? Or in that treaty, we got technology, right?
Cell phones,
internet,
yes,
all that stuff. We got the keys to where we're at now.
Fiber optics, all of it. Okay.
Yep. No, I totally. That is definitely something that the story of Roswell, stuff like that. The Corona incident, I guess, if you want to be specific about it.
Yep.
Stuff like even Skinwalker Ranch. They're doing stuff on Skinwalker Ranch.
Shit about Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch is pretty bad mojo there. There's definitely a portal or a ship that's buried underneath the mountain in that area.
Oh, there has to be.
It's such a well-known story, just skinwalkers in general. I had my almost 7-year-old son in the back of the car. We were driving, and he was like, yeah, I was talking to somebody about a skinwalker. I'm like, the fuck did you just say? A skinwalker? How do you know anything about this?
Wow, that's something.
So with everything being passed, and like when that bill came up and it got passed and the first alien video came out, just like most things on social media, it's here and then it's gone. Do you feel like we are talking about these experiences more often, or it's just something that we push to the side? We acknowledge it and go, yes, there's a flying saucer. Next video, please.
Well, yeah, back in the day, it was a thing. It was like, oh, yeah, talk about the UFOs. But now that more disclosure is happening, it's becoming like, oh, yeah, another UFO, Oh, yeah, that was a balloon in the sky that they shot down. But I think it's considered not cognitive dissonance, but more of a predictive programming. They show it to you. They put it in your face. And say like what they did with Trump, okay? So they indicted him. They brought him to New York, and they went through the whole schemata there of what was going on, and drag him through the mud, da 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 da. And what do you think that's opening the door for? Don't you think?
Conspiracy.
Don't you think that next they're going to go after the Democrat side too? Mm-hmm. Don't you think that kind of like not numbs us to it, but kind of gets us ready, for something else that may be happening? So there's a lot of predictive programming and psyops that are going on in the world around us right now. Paths we're being led down, or things that are opening our eyes. But back to the UFO, I think that it's kind of getting to the point where, yeah, it's another UFO, and I think most folks are like, well, if it doesn't land in my backyard and this guy doesn't get out of this creature and talk to me, or I don't, or if I don't get abducted, I'm not going to believe in it, So I think they're getting us ready for something. It's called Project Bluebeam. Do you guys know about Project Bluebeam?
No. I've only known about a few Project Blue anythings, but not Bluebeam.
Project Blue Book, was back in the was back in the 50s, wasn't it? And the Air Force actually, had shut that down. That was kind of a psyop in a way, to kind of for soft disclosure for most of us normies back in that day when I was a normie, if I can remember that far back. You know what? I never was a normie. Okay, there you go. Never was. Always weird as fuck. Had my own thoughts, and So, and I think keeping an open mind like that, it's allowed me to learn so much more than just shutting it down. But I think do some research on Project Bluebeam. It's where they can actually holographically on the skies project craft and things like that, as in UFO.
We've seen stuff like that. Planes going and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I've seen stuff like that.
Okay, so that explains a lot of the kind of previously unexplained phenomena where I seen something going 120 kilometers per second, and then 5 seconds later it was gone. So
just disappears. You had made mention whenever we were talking in our text that you had comments about the Area 51 raid and everything. Oh shit! Hold on, we got to go back because the phone started ringing. So you had made comments during our text feed about the Area 51 raid, not just the Area 51 raid, but our alien episode in general. I want to hear your comments, dude. I want to hear it because we are basically 4 guys in a room that have no idea, and we love learning. So, like, anything you have to fill us in on, I'm here to listen for.
Okay, let's see what I put on my notes here. Area 51, Groom Lake, S4, 2 different locations, very close together. Reverse engine or reverse UFO technology. It's where they pulled a lot of the technology we have today. They still have craft underground that they have captured over the years. There have been, I don't know how many, dare I say, hundreds of craft that have been recovered, and a lot of them sitting at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Not everybody knows that, but Area 51 is also, and as you guys know, you've heard of DUMBs, right? Deep underground military bases.
Yep.
Yeah. So they store them there. They pick them apart. They got their scientists that do this, that, and the other, and try to reverse engineer everything. But Area 51, I was trying to look for the graphic earlier before I come on. I couldn't find it, but actually showed the different levels of Area 51. Like one level's used for, hybridization of humans, DNA replication, and maybe another level or 2 was, nothing but UFO downed craft that they were trying to reverse engineer. And, the deeper you go towards the bottom is where they actually had some of these aliens in captivity, some of the baddies, a lot of them had spawned from the Third and Fourth Reich, Germany. We're talking about Antarctica underground bases. Oops. Sorry, that was a big red bill. So you guys want to know what's going on in Antarctica as well. You've got all that going on. And I remember you guys also talking about Tartaria. That's a big rabbit hole that you need to go down sometime. But, you see all these beautiful buildings that are, hundreds of years old, and they tear them down, and they put up these new structures to take the place of them. If you look around in some of the older established cities, I know downtown Danville had some, and we have some around here in Asheville. and just old. And these old buildings had the old free energy tech that was still within these buildings, where they would pull like big antennas, this energy from the ether through the building to create this free energy. Well, if you think about it, the Rockefellers and all these dumbasses, decided they want to keep rape. How else can we rape the people of the planet? Of course, they're going to charge us for energy. So that's something else that you guys might want to check into. But Tartaria, free energy from the ether. Another wild one is, now that we're coming into gardening season, is electroculture. We're using copper wire. The higher you go, the more energy you're able to pull out of the ether, wrapping it around a post or a stick even, and pushing it down into the soil, electrifying it. So yeah, that's some other crazy stuff. Area 51, see what else. I haven't been there. Of course not. They chase you off, and you guys were wondering.
Seen videos of there was a video of a guy who was stopped at the gate who was telling the guards, like, "Hey, I'm here to see so and so," and they're like, "No, you're not. Leave." He's like, I have this piece of paper right here, and they're like, "We don't care. Leave."
About the only way they get in and out of Area 51 is, I think it's Las Vegas Airport, and they use these specialized small planes. I don't know if they're 727, 737. I'm not sure if they call it Janus Air or something like that. I can't remember the name off the bat. But that's the main way they get their contractors in and out of that area. Now, they know, of course, that more and more people are watching that area and seeing, watching what's going on, or at least trying to observe, these reverse engineered craft, which for most cases, you guys have seen the black triangles, right? With the lights in the corners, the UFOs.
Yes.
That's ours. That's a TR-3B. That craft, and as a matter of fact, there's like TR-4s probably now. But that is ours. That was reverse engineered technology that uses 0-point energy. So it actually, from what I understand, I'm not an engineer in astrophysics or anything like that, or aeronautics. It was gonna be, but anyway, that's another story. But they actually push off the ether energy, I think, that's in our atmosphere, and they also take advantage of the ley lines that crisscross the earth as well.
Okay.
Well, the earth plane.
Yeah, the ley lines played big into what we were talking about earlier with Aleister Crowley and all that too, where you're being on those points of energy is what was your best bet. That's why there's certain areas where there's so many intersecting ones where you could. It's almost unbelievable what you could do if you actually knew how to do it.
It's an electrical grid.
Yeah.
Is that why you spent time in Egypt? I remember his story, him ending up in Egypt for a little bit of time, and that's when he was doing a lot of his practices.
I think he spent time in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken, because he wanted to study the pyramids and those mythos specifically.
Well, you guys know who the Egyptians are, right?
Yeah.
Who were they?
Where
did they come from?
He didn't understand your question. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
The Atlanteans.
The Atlanteans?
Yes.
They're dry land
Atlanteans? From Atlantis. Yeah.
Okay.
They took their technology. They were giants. That's how they were able to build the pyramids. One block at a time. I'm talking, 30, 50, 60-foot giants.
I do recall actually a few stories I've gotten into that do say that. I kind of want to do this just because I was curious earlier while we were talking. So we've brought up the reptilians, and those are the bad guys in every sense that I've come across.
The Drake, there's a couple classes.
Draconian.
Draconians.
Draconian. The Draconian reptilians are the ones we mostly hear about. They're like the upper echelon. And then you have the lower grunts that are below them. But yes,
the worker cask or whatever.
Yep. And the grays. Yeah. So
they're like I ask I ask about the reptilians specifically because I've listened to a few Coast to Coast AMs with George Norrie. I like to go there, and I love him. He's awesome. He gives all of his he shows all of his ass in his story.
I did a show with him once.
So this will kind of hit home.
Out in California, it was one of his beginning shows. It was a pilot that we went out and participated in out in that was not San Bernardino. It was Burbank. It's actually where the studio was. But he's full of himself, and I'm not. I used to be fully on board with Norrie, but not so much anymore.
That leads into my question, because you were talking about it earlier with media and stuff, and he's obviously a huge outlet. Coast to Coast has been an outlet for this type of for as long as I can think back, and I'm only 26 years old.
Right.
But that's why I kind of was curious on where you stand, because when I think of George Norrie, I think of questions like, so you say reptilians are a part of our being,
character, dude.
And so if they are, my one question is, where do they put their skins when they molt? And I think of questions that he asks almost just like that, where I'm like, is he a part of the problem now for the seriousness of it, or is it more, did he go more Alex Jones, where now it's a character more than a belief or something like that?
I think you're on the correct lines there on that. I think for visibility reasons, he was able to bring a lot of that out. Same with Alex Jones too. You got to think about how much of that, or how much of they are controlled opposition. They're on a payroll somewhere, or somebody's got some sort of blackmail leverage on them.
There's always an agenda with anybody.
Yeah.
There's always an agenda, no matter who it is.
One of the big things is follow the money. So if you got somebody making money, these guys are out there grifting, or whatever, or pushing a product, you got to kind of follow that. Now, I can kind of understand if you're trying to, use maybe a sponsor to help you pay for airtime or internet connectivity. But if you're making hand over fist and driving a Bentley or something like that, then I'd look into that a little closer. But George Norrie, I think that he's helped. Of course, he's one of the pioneers behind Art Bell. Because
of course
Art Bell was before him, George Norrie, and I miss Art Bell.
Yeah,
miss him to death.
Art Bell.
Yes, yes, bless his soul, man. But I think Norrie's more of a showman, but it takes something kind of like that for somebody to stop and listen to somebody, because if someone's not very polished or entertaining, how long is somebody going to sit there and listen to this person talk about a subject, or let alone believe them?
True or not.
Yeah. Alex Jones is another one. I think he's also, I think he's Masonic. I think quite a few of them are in the Masonic order.
Are you thinking that, when I think of them, I think I want to go almost to the track of like disinformation for half of the stuff. Some of the, are they a disinformation psyop that's allowed to say and do what they're doing, or is it
I think there's a percentage. I think it's like 80 and 20. So they give you 80% truth and slide in a little bit of disinformation. Oh, I got you on this much. We're fishing here, right? Yeah. So they're bringing you in. They get you to a point, and then they're like, okay, well, let's throw this other stuff in there, and they'll definitely believe that too. So I'm that's where I'm kind of at with some of these people, and some are 50-50. So it's very hard to discern who's a bullshit artist, and who's true from the heart. Follow the money.
And that leads me into my question. It's, how do you discern what's real and what's fake? From any of the quote unquote conspiracies, like, how do you discern from what's real and what's fake? Whether it be the reptilians, whether it be aliens, ghosts,
hollow moon, anything along those lines.
The
flat Earth theory
from the chaff. The wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, exactly.
I look to my inner discernment on most of that stuff, if it doesn't smell right, taste right, I think I'm to the mind side enough to where I'm able to discern at a pretty good rate. There's some things, of course, in my past that I've read about or seen or studied that I've had to throw out because it's like completely finding out something later that, yeah, this was a disinformation campaign, part of a psyop to lead us all down this pathway,
Mm-hmm.
So that's a daily thing, man. That's a daily thing. And I think the further you research, the more and more you dig into a subject, the more and more that becomes clearer as to what's going on. And they could still have you buffaloed and not knowing exactly what's going on. But I think to say, yes, there are reptilian aliens. Yes, I've seen them. Yes, I slept with one of their daughters, that kind of a thing, had reptilian sex,
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
The abduction stories that I've fucking heard are just
what was
nuts.
it? Elizabeth Clark. She
fell in love with them.
She was huge with Akon
and Starcon from Bracon.
No, it was from. Oh man,
fucking ridiculous. There was three of them. Yeah, she fell in love with them. They've been watching them from like birth to like at that point in time.
Yeah,
and
those were the Venusians.
Venusians,
right?
yeah. And they lived on a. They lived on.
There's Arcturians, not the Arcturians. Pleiadians.
I was gonna say, before we start getting to wrap up, because this has been awesome, and I'd love to do this again sometime to go down some more after we've done some more of our own research. But before we start closing up, will you just give us a rundown real quick of the races of aliens that you subscribe to belief in, at least? If there's more than 10, keep it to 10 just for time's sake. But I keep hearing there's only
a little bit more time. I still have one more personal question for the group, perfect. And then we have 2 fan emails that wanted to directly talk to you before we close things out.
Okay, perfect. So we'll run down the races of the aliens, and then we'll do our last few closeout questions. Because I have always been curious, because I hear there's like 12 root races, and then there's certain ones that aren't existing anymore. So I'm just kind of curious on what your stance is on that.
I'm not super versed on that. I know about the Greys. I know that there are worker bees for the reptilians and the Draco reptilians. I've heard of avians, which are bird-like creatures. Hang on a second, let me get you back on video. I've heard of the Arcturians. I've heard of Pleiadians. There's also another species I've heard of. They're kind of a canine type. And there's also a feline type of creature. But a lot of these are just things I've heard after. But of course, the most famous are the gray aliens, the worker bees, the drones that are sent down to do whatever they got to do. Demonic, little demonic entities, But most of these are manifesting into our physical realm through, I think, these bodies. They're kind of like what we are. Because we are, like I said, we're spiritual beings having a physical, experience, when these meat bodies. But
so do you, by chance, subscribe to the idea of the tulpas that we,
be created? Yes.
Yeah, like yes. Nick Redfern in his book about the Slender Man enigma and all that. Like you do believe that is something that we have as a
we are creators.
As a race, as a species, we can manifest that ourselves.
We can manifest so much more than we know about right now. We have been held back. They're talking about, in the beginning that us as a spiritual beings had, or in the physical, had 24 strands of DNA, not just the 2, But I believe that we can create. We are creators. And that's one of the big things that they wanted to keep from our knowledge. The pineal gland has a lot to do with that. The chakras that align our bodies have a lot to do with that, which, you know, help feed and generate this, you know, to stimulate the crystals inside the pineal gland and align us to this. But yeah, tulpas. Oh yeah. And Nick Redfern, I worked with Nick out at Roswell when I did my Discovery Channel piece out there. We were a group called X-Ops. There was a total of 8 of us that they flew out first to San Bernardino, California, to Norton Air Force Base. So we had our studio there, and they took us in a private jet, flew us from there and that Air Force Base out to Roswell. And then we went to the museum. We went to the crash site. We also went to the hangar and did a somewhat of a seance kind of a thing, which got interesting. Noises, people in the crew that were physically attacked, and this one guy crumpled to the floor. He was okay later, but yeah, that's some fun rabbit holes to be jumping down.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a kind of a big Redfern fan after the few things I've gotten into, so that's awesome that you actually. Nick is awesome.
Nick's an awesome dude. Also, Jim Mars was on the X-Ops program with us. Do you know Jim Mars? Two R's. Familiar. Marrs. Look him up, Jim Mars. He did a lot on also the JFK assassination conspiracy as well.
God, I love that fucking conspiracy.
That's a good one.
I fucking love it.
Yeah, that one I went down rabbit hole just a couple months ago, and you wouldn't believe how many people were lined up with the rifles on that day to make sure that happened. So
I can only imagine it from
there wasn't just
the stuff
one
that I've gotten into. It's,
yeah, just a little bit. Dipping your toe into any of these subjects you will be so sucked down the rabbit hole, it's not even funny.
That's my life.
One video, and by the time you know it, it's dinner time, and you've watched 5 straight hours of just some of the out there stuff that like brings you back in and goes, okay, this could actually be a possibility. I mean, it's nuts. So for my producer and I want to bring up, we are going to do a asylum walkthrough basically for this show. We're going to be getting GoPros. What do you think we would need to do an all-night stay at an asylum that is, you know, relatively, from what we've heard, haunted?
Right. Walkie-talkies.
Walkie-talkies.
Believe it or not. You want EMF meter, at least 1 or 2. There are stationary EMF field, tri-field meters that you can set up in like the most active areas and watch. Just like that meter got knocked over in the chair. That's a tri-field meter. That's an EMF tri-field meter. GoPros, yes. Batteries, extra batteries. You're laughing, but you know this.
No, I know. I've seen videos. Yeah. I've seen videos where they'll have their camera fully charged, and it's just like they're like, oh, I don't know, it's dead now.
Go one step further. You know what I used to do in my investigations? I would take aluminum foil and create a Faraday cage around my extra batteries.
Nice.
You got to.
So how do you do that? You just like basically surround the battery itself in foil?
Create a shoebox.
A shoebox? Okay.
Yeah, do a shoebox and then cover it in foil. Create a small Faraday cage somewhere where you can keep those batteries, okay? And anything else that may drain like that. And when you're ready to use them, that's when you use them, because they can suck down a battery in an instant. It's crazy. Right. We're talking about energy and frequencies and vibration. So they can also take your energy as well. So
you can feel drained.
Yes.
And stuff.
Yes.
What kind of protection would Jake and I need?
Surround yourself with white light. You know, ask God to be there with you, and ask for St. Michael's protection.
So with me, I have to get down with it because I am borderline satanic,
Right.
like the new age satanic belief where it's like it's just an image and a title. It doesn't really mean like I'm not going out and sacrificing anybody. There's no rituals. There's nothing. It's more like atheistic with a spice of just a little bit of I don't know, like respect somebody. If science can prove it, believe it. Women, children, don't harm animals. Like it's more modernized. Basically, I don't know if you've ever seen anything by a man named Lucian Gray. He has a lot of information on that. So for me, I don't know how I myself would protect myself against something like that. Do you have any advice for me? Like, I don't know Jake's religious background. What are you?
I'm gonna hop in quick.
All right, he's gonna hop in real quick.
Keep talking.
But yeah, for me in general, it's hard for me to call upon something like that. And I respect your religious beliefs. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. I respect everybody and anybody and how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to know how I would personally protect
How
myself.
you, as an atheist, would protect yourself against
Yes.
demonic forces?
Yes.
That's a slippery slope, man. That's kind of like being on the wrong team, going in there. But I don't think I have a clear answer for you, because I know you really have to pretty much stay away from a lot of you're just gonna have to be careful.
It's a hard question. It's a hard question, especially
it is, and I've never had to really work with that. I have worked with other folks that have had that. I could surround you with protection, whatever you don't believe in. I'll tell you what, just ask for St. Michael's protection.
St. Michael's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the night that we're doing the investigation, I believe it's going to be in October. We've been planning this for like 2 years now.
Wow.
Just to do this. Like the
Yeah.
podcast has now gotten to the point where we can afford everybody, well, not everybody, but at least Jake and I and a couple other people to stay in the room.
Right.
Well, people don't, like Tom and was it Talon or it was Riley? Sorry, it was Riley. Didn't want to do it, so it's just you and I believe going to do it. I was doing when you want to join us.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's 3 of us then. All right.
Yeah. No, Jake left the station. I asked a question about Jake, and Jake left his station.
Yeah.
Like a fucking jackass.
Yeah, my bad.
It's okay. It's okay. We have a total of 7 people here, so like that do this show. Yeah, I've built a nice little thing going on out here with this whole show. Like we've got editors,
That's his nice way of saying we're the Grays, just to stay on topic. So
okay, so to follow in
St. Michael. Yeah.
St. Michael. I'll call you right before we go in. Right before I walk in.
Can I do something quick before you start that?
What? No.
So, speaking of the Greys, like everyone thinks of the Greys, the Devil's Den. Let's say, like the guy who's part of that. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry about that, but he saw Monkey Man.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he and his friend from the military went on a camping trip in a secluded area, and they got abducted, and he woke up and saw, like, not Monkey Man, but like he was. I guess
it was Monkey Man because he says, "Don't patronize me. They look like fucking monkeys."
That was, as a kid, he would wake up and like there would be lights in his window and Monkey Man coming into his bedroom and fucking with him.
Hybridization could also be hallucinations on his side as far as what he might be expecting.
See, what I heard is, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. The only thing that would disprove that is like a mass hallucination to where like 2 or 3 people see all these monkey men climbing through the window, At that time you have to think about alien hybridization, because they've been screwing with our DNA since I don't know, for centuries. And
I mean, that's basically like the whole point of abductions. The thought around it is that they're taking us up, taking our DNA, so that they can make the perfect life form, right?
Well, we are hybrids.
We ourselves are hybrids.
Yes, we are.
Well, you would have to assume so, almost.
We
evolution.
No, we have. Well, think about the tails that some of us are born with at the ends of our spines. We are an experiment and have been for, like I said, centuries, thousands of years. The Anunnaki are the ones that were actually they are the ones who created the Nephilim that talk about in the book of Book of Genesis in the Bible. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the Nephilim.
Yep, and the Anunnaki are the ones that basically created, spliced, and hybridized us. We're part reptilian. Sorry, big red pill there. You need to do some research on it. So a lot of times they think, oh, why did this person do this? That's a horrible thing, because they're in the reptile mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our reptile brain. I hear that a lot in the talks, is that our reptile brain takes over for those instances of inhumane ability to even
basic,
think.
Caveman, base, our lusts, desires, the wanting of blood, stuff like that. It all goes back to the reptilian brain, and we are hybridized reptilian aliens, but not completely aliens, because we're humans and we're aliens.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So
back to the Devil's Den thing, you brought up a while ago that there was a 3-point triangle black ship, which would be ours, you said, right?
Yes, TR-3Bs. Yep.
They saw one of them, and they got sucked up into one of them, and then they had the way they quoted it, a guide tour. And that was a hybrid.
Tour guide, you fucking ass backwards motherfucker.
Tour guide tour, fuck off, right?
Tour and I both looked at each other like, did he just fucking say that?
Tour guide, all right, my bad.
Behind the camera, not behind the mic.
My bad. Tour guide.
Quit busting his balls. Let him go.
Yeah, thank you. All right, fuck you guys.
Come on, Jake.
All right, so a tour guide.
Kept
was trying to keep him calm, and he said he woke up and there were several humans around him, but there was a hybrid who was not a human but not an alien, hence a hybrid, trying to keep them all calm and they want to see. And he said that he saw this quote unquote hybrid during the Monkey Man thing, and he thought the Monkey Man were wearing masks to make him, as a kid, I guess, not be afraid of them. Could they?
They project
do that
themselves because. I had an experience once, abduction experience, and I was taken aboard. I'll tell you this. We can go into it further in the future. But awesome. What I do remember was as I'm laying inside this oval-shaped room, there were several of them, across the room to keep me calm. I wasn't freaking out. That's the weirdest thing. But I can always go back to before I got to this point. As I looked across the room, I think they sensed that I was apprehensive as to what was going on or getting ready to freak the fuck out, So, you know what this guy did? The little gray alien across the room? He put on a smiley face, like a mask on his face. And it was a smiley face, just like you see the Walmart smiley face.
I was about to bring that up.
Yellow and black. And I just sat there. I just laughed. I was like, I was like, well, that's funny.
Honestly, it's more terrifying than the gray person.
Well, it's one of those things where they're not human, so they don't really know. They only know the base way to capture what they know is our calming and happiness type stuff. Because when they can only guess at it.
When they took me out of the bedroom, this guy was peeking through the wall. Okay, and I was in the bedroom. This one happened to me in Florida, and I saw him peek his head through, and the first thing that came to my mind was brother. I'm like, brother, where the hell's that come from? So I wasn't scared of this guy. It's like I was kin to this thing. I'm like, where did that thought come from? Next thing I know, I'm being levitated out through the wall of the house and up into the ship. And the only reason I know a lot of this is I went through a hypnotic regression session and actually, had this brought out. Once I passed through the wall and up into the ship, I didn't remember anything after that. It was only through hypnotic regression that I saw the rest of this going on. So, yeah, it was weird because that next morning, my dog, Dakota, was kind of sick the next day, almost. And Dakota also had patches of fur that were coming off. It was almost like a radiation sickness to where they were exposed, or maybe I've been exposed, because I know at least a couple of times it's happened to me. I'd wake up the next morning and just felt like I was drugged face down behind a train, for 200 miles. I just felt horrible. I felt drained of all my energy and just completely, and kind of, I felt a little bit of this radiation sickness. But
have you found any marks on you after that incident or no?
Yes.
Or any implants, maybe.
So actually, I can't remember. I think it's on the left or right arm. I did find something. It felt like a pebble underneath my arm, but I since cut it out shortly after that time. And I did see like a little speck of blood on my arm. And I went in there and I took it out. I couldn't tell it must have been, it was so small, maybe even a crystalline structure. They talk about these implants are put into people. I've actually got one here. My mother said she went through an experience one time and ended up with something. I don't know if it was in her arm as well, but she had it cut out. I've got it here at the house. It's in formaldehyde. Because I told her, I said, if you ever get that cut out, let me know. And I'll hang on to it. I never did have it analyzed. It's still here. But it's something about, abductions. If you guys ever find yourself in that experience, say out loud the best you can, because a lot of it, you feel like, you're having sleep paralysis to where you can't move or scream. And that's pretty scary in itself. But if you say, and I've heard this across the board, I'm hearing it more and more. People that say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you off of me. This needs to stop now. And instantly, these guys are pulled out. And this is what happened to me the last time it happened to me. And they haven't messed with me since. So, like I said, it just weird stuff going on. I didn't think I was going to be getting into that tonight, but anyway.
Oh no, you're good.
It's happened more than once to me, but I can't talk to too many people about that one. But now we're on the live podcast, so
yeah, my bad. I'm sorry.
Save for posterity. No, that's all right, brother. It's all right. But yeah, TR3Bs, CIA, MK Ultra, a lot of these things.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
Okay, so as for me personally, I've heard there's a smell of freshly cut grass when you see one of these UFOs. Is that...
Who told you that?
Who told you that? It's supposed to be like sulfur.
Sulfur.
I heard that recently, actually.
Yeah, sulfur and pneumonia I get sometimes even.
I heard it was more like a freshly cut grass mixed... That's what I've fucking heard. I'm sorry.
Dude, I think you're just a redneck.
No, that's all right.
What I've heard?
I haven't heard that one yet, but I'll listen for it.
Probably completely wrong. My bad.
It's a nice smell, though, right? Fresh cut grass.
Oh, it's a lovely smell.
Better than sulfur. So.
Yeah. Sulfur. Yeah, when you guys are on investigations and you start smelling sulfur, you know that something's near. So
that's when we need to call on St. Michael.
Yeah, a portal's been open. You're breathing some of that air. Who knows what it was? But yeah, sulfur's bad. Sulfur's bad news.
So I posted a status on our Instagram and our Facebook for anybody that had any kind of questions that wanted to be heard. We don't normally do this with any kind of guests that we have on the show.
Wow.
But we've never had an expert like you, so it's actually kind of a first.
We had like Larry
expert,
Hankin.
I just share my knowledge.
Yeah, we've had people on the show like Larry Hankin from like movies like Billy Madison and Escape from Alcatraz. We've had famous bands on here like Telekinetic Yeti and bands that are breaking through the surface that we fully believe in. Listeners of the show themselves, but we've never had anybody that spent so much behind one topic that has all this information.
Right.
So I shot a message out for people to go ahead and respond to. So from Thomas Brooks from Ontario, Canada, or Toronto, my bad. I'm so sorry, Thomas, if you're watching this or listening to this.
From Toronto, okay.
From Toronto, my bad. Through most of my life, I've wanted instances what I could describe as only as spirits and ghosts. I've met no one who has had stories that are concrete from what I've experienced. From auditory knocking on the walls and full-on visual experiences, I've had many experiences that I've come accustomed to being in contact in some fashion, whatever these entities are. All are friendly feeling, but not negative feeling, and approached through some of more aggressive points in my life. I firmly believe that these are not random right places, right time experiences. But But more than I thought that I have more favorable or optional energy to being in contact with this intimate object. I guess my questions are more certain than people for more susceptible to experiencing things like this over others. If so, why?
Yes. And I think the more you're in tune with your own self, your inner knowing, I think the more you're going to attract this type of energy. The knocks, of course, the rapping on the walls, the things I hear, those are attention getters. So they're like, hey, we're here. Do you want to communicate? I get that kind of a thing. But most times the dark entities you can feel, but also keep in mind that same with an Ouija board and also the Chat GPT that's going around right now, AI.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
We were just actually talking about this before we started recording.
It's just it's the modern day Ouija board, all right?
And seeing stuff like from like Elon Musk and all of the people that
AI.
run.
Why do you think
they're like, hey, you need to calm down on this? This has gotten to a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
And that has always been a prediction, though. That's always been a prediction.
Right. Well, also Elon Musk is scraping all of this AI information from us as members and creating this AI. I have a pet theory that Twitter is AI. It's run by
for the
AI.
most part, it is, yeah.
I mean, these sites get so like... I mean, you're to the point on Facebook where if you post something that they don't like, they immediately, I'm talking not even seconds of it being posted, it's down.
All the
it's
media.
got these triggers. And it's to this point where you honestly have to stop and think, how much of our day-to-day is AI controlled and how much is it just actually me doing my own thing?
Right. Well, you think about it, Elon Musk, he came in and when he purchased, he cleaned house, didn't he? So he took like a third or almost 2/3 of all the people away from Twitter.
Just fucking kicked them out.
Yeah. So I truly think that there you still have some of those underground factions within Twitter. I can't imagine him not being in the know about those. Are there secret servers tied in that he doesn't know about? But I still can't imagine that. Elon Musk, I have mixed feelings on him. I think he's a brilliant person. And I think he's going to do good things. And I also think that he has a propensity to do bad things. And I think that Twitter is an AI. And I think he's using all of us who are on Twitter to use to scrape off our AI information and go from there. Because they talked about the brain implants. Oh, Elon's wanting to do the brain implants and whatnot. But I truly think that AI is there's a discarnate being or an entity that is soulless, which would in our case be what? Demons, right?
Yeah.
So I've got mixed feelings. But back to the question, people attract. I have my whole life. Even the lead investigator of the group that I used to belong to years ago. I remember him always saying, he's like, if it's there, Brian's going to get it on camera. You know that, right? So it's like I'm a spirit magnet. At the same time, you have to shut some of that down. It depends on what you open yourself up to. You attract what you attract, and you got to be careful with that. So, yeah, that's where we're at on that. Yeah, it's definitely some type of communication.
So it's a certain type of person that they just radiate that kind of energy to the point where it's being tracked, basically.
It's where their mindset is, where they are psychologically, mentally, emotionally.
Which is why they say most possessions or any kind of interactions are mostly done by girls that are going through puberty at that point in time. Right?
Or alcoholics. Yeah.
Or alcoholics trying to battle their fight.
Yeah, you've got all of these walk-in entities that see that, want to obsess and or possess these people. And it happens. They're gateways to get into our bodies. Drugs the same way. I don't see anything wrong with marijuana. I think that in its use can be used to open up doorways. Same with regulated psilocybin DMT experiences.
Amen.
Because
Amen.
now wait a minute now. Yeah, don't take 5 to 8 grams or whatever,
No.
Ounces,
don't worry.
Yeah,
no.
You don't have meltdown experiences, but I think that guided resets can happen with people during psilocybin therapy. There's a place in Chicago, I think it does it, and all that. You have people that have PTSD. I think it could really help them a lot. People said also after mushroom or shroom experiences that they could do a reset on themselves, maybe stop smoking like I need to do. But, so I think they all have their purposes. I think they also have the balance. I think acid, LSD, stuff like that. There's a lot of drugs that, destroy the body, the brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They do. And, what we experience when we do drugs is we experience the feeling and the responses of our physical bodies trying to right itself from that altered state of existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'll 100% agree with you that anytime I've done, Jake is now dabbling his toes into psilocybin. He's been doing,
We had a fucking narc on him.
Pretty frequent
Thanks,
trips.
my guy.
Yeah, we talked about it the last episode.
Right.
But, I've honestly felt during my trips, whenever I get done, that I feel like there is a giant reset button on... I can't even say my person. It feels like my soul almost. Like I feel changed after any kind of experience that I've done with psilocybin. Acid, I feel like it's more of a mind-altering drug. As a whole, I've never really felt the reset that psilocybin has ever given me. It's nuts.
Is that possibly having to do with LSD being a government? What is it, PSYOP from the start, basically?
Yeah, and they used them on military. They talk about back in the 60s where they actually, they pushed LSD and acid. They wanted to see what would happen to these folks that happened to.
But that came from the Nazis, didn't it, with the Blitzkrieg and the meth?
Well, there was that too. And they wanted to keep these guys fighting for 2 or 3 days at a time without sleeping. And what they call Blitzkrieg. Getting in creating berserkers, right?
Yep.
So these guys go on these death rampages where they're killing, just like, Army of Darkness going through and, killing all these people, in a mad dash.
Like that.
Joe Rogan talks a lot, and I used to listen to Joe Rogan a lot before he went to pay. I listened to him a lot, and I listened to him talk about his psilocybin experiences and how he had different doctors on there talking about the resets and the therapy that was used. But I think it does have its purpose. I think that the altered states of consciousness allow us to see things in our life that we don't slow down enough to see. Marijuana is good for that. It'll it'll slow you down to such a point to where you're microscopically looking at everything in your life, how you treat other people, the things that are going on in your life, and sometimes that's a little scary for some folks,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back and realizing like how they've wronged people, and then they focus on it, and they just replay that moment over and over and over again.
Yeah, almost like a haunting itself.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how everything kind of intertwines.
Kind of like you being on the Pirates of the Caribbean for 3 hours, right?
That was a fucking nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fucking nightmare. I could see the end too. That was the worst part. Is like I was like right around the corner. It just stopped, and they were like, "Yeah, it's broken for a while." It's like, okay, how long is a while?
I never asked. Did you just knock it out of your seat or what?
No, you couldn't. Like it was like literally at the very end. Yeah, it was at the very end. Like they were the pirates were behind bars.
Just keep in mind, Tyler, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. It could have been It's a Small World.
Oh, don't even fucking curse me or my family with that torture.
Taking their own lives and, slashing the jugulars right there in the boats,
Fuck.
Yeah, It's a Small World.
I rode that ride one time. They play the same song throughout the entire line waiting, and then you get on the ride. Yeah, then you get on the fucking ride, and it's the same thing. Fucking the worst thing ever.
Yeah, don't get me started on Disney. That's another bad.
We did it one time, and that was enough for me.
Yeah.
So to finish this off, we've got one more question from another listener.
Shit, this is big.
There was one that I had answered during the episode, or I had asked during the episode to you. So this one is the last one we're gonna do. I've never understood how ghost spirits and what you have are able to communicate through different devices. Are all of these communication devices giving us actual evidence of the paranormal, or is it all bullshit? So basically, to also fill in another question, how do you convince a non-believer?
How do you convince? They have to have that experience themselves. They do. Or they have to be there. Yeah. Yeah. You can tell, just like I tell people about the wall, oh, they're gonna, he's an alcoholic. You just gotta hit that wall himself, this, that, and the other. You can sit there and talk to this person until you're blue in the face. Look, don't do this. This is going to ruin your life. Da, 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 da. You can show them the wall. You can throw them at the wall, but it's not going to matter until they hit the wall themselves. So, yeah.
So what about the devices now? Is that something that...
The technology, okay. So, like, I haven't actively really ghost hunted quite some time, but the last device I was telling you about was the DB7. And it actually, goes through and runs through scans through the radio frequencies. So it's going up and down, quite fast. And it picks up on these frequencies. So I think it's all frequency. I think that's how sometimes, they're able to come through on these standing waves, but you just don't know what that wave is because we're always vibrating at different frequencies, right? You're in a good mood this day, but the next day you feel like shit, So I don't think we're like, oh, you're at 732 megahertz and you always stay there, So somebody can come in and go dial in, okay, he's at 732 megahertz always, Healing frequencies, you can do that. There are several, healing frequencies that you can listen to that heal your body. And then there's other frequencies that will make you go down and go in a dark place. And like they did with the music industry, they went from 432 megahertz on, I don't know if it was the middle C or D, to 440 megahertz. So today's music is completely fucked to begin with. Because it's all based on that. And,
Take that, Taylor Swift.
To be fair, I'm talking way back. The music of the classical music, the music of the 70s and 80s even. They had this underlying 440 frequency that is already creating on us subconsciously, but we're not aware of it. and there was a purer tone when they created music, and all instruments were tuned to 432 hertz instead, or megahertz. But I think they're devices, but they have to be so fastly sweeping. I don't think there's any magical frequency. When they say, "Oh, raise your vibration," be a happier person, this, that, and the other. I think that, because everybody has a camera nowadays, right? And cell phone cameras are like, crazy high in megapixel and resolution. And, after, editing software after that, it's harder and harder for people to believe when they see a video. They're like, oh yeah, that's deep fake, or that's CGI. Well, how do you tell? So people have to experience it themselves, I think.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that answers, dude.
Yeah. No.
More than you could ever know, man. You have opened the door to so many questions. You have answered so many doors that we have left open. For our future investigation, I can't wait to have you back, talk about the things that we've gone through and witnessed and seen in our investigations, because honestly, Jake and I kind of want to start doing this more often. We're starting with this asylum nearby, and we're going to start checking off places in Iowa, normally taking about a year in between. So you really helped us out.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It just always remember, protect yourself.
Protect yourself.
And don't bring any of that home. And speaking of doorways, I think there's a xenomorph at my front door.
Well, you might want to go take care of that then, Brian.
I think I got it.
Oh my God. It was so great having you, man, though. I totally can't wait to do this again. It was awesome for you to help us out and give us some answers here.
And with that, I am your fearless leader, Tyler Campbell.
I'm Dylan the intern.
And I was the part producer, part on the show, the dipshit Jake.
And how about you, Brian? One more from you. Who are you?
And I am Brian Irish, the old paranormal fart. Who knows a little bit about everything.
I love it, man. I loved having you on here. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us your time. These 2 hours have felt eye-opening and brain-busting all at the same time. I cannot thank you again for being on here. Check out our social medias. You can find us all at menofmisfortune@gmail.com. Check out our Patreon. Anywhere you guys get your podcasts, find us. Follow us. Love us. I am out.
I think we're out.
Is that a question?
Thank you, Brian. Thank you one more time. Have a good night, man.
Thank
I appreciate
you.
It.
You're welcome. Have a good night. We'll do this again.
Yes,
for sure.
Thank
Have a good
night.
night.
Thank you so much. See you, bud.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, always listen to Mom.